When we see the way the New Testament is written and how Jesus is fulfilling the Old Testament Passover, suddenly we start to see God's testimonies of God's faithfulness with food and with water and doing supernatural acts. In fact, as you go back through the Old Testament, you would see a tree of life in the garden that provided food for them to eat, but also there was a river that rode through the garden. And when you see the rescue of Noah in the flood, but also the provision of food for the 8 people in the ark, when we see the Passover lamb and the meal that was shared and they had to eat it in a hurry because they knew when the Lord called them, they had to move at once, but also the parting of the Red Sea. When there was manna from heaven, there was also water from the rock. When there was quail given to the people, and then later as Joshua led them to the parting of the Jordan River as they entered into the promised land for conquest. Well, you remember when the ravens came in Elijah's time and they fed him and they kept him in ministry and encouraged him in ministry. And you remember the widow's oil in Elijah's story where she was given first all that she had to the prophet, and then suddenly that oil was sustained by a supernatural act of God. In the same way, we see the Lord do miracle after miracle with food. Jesus here feeding the 5,000. In other accounts, he feeds 4,000. He walks on the water. He calms the storm. He calms the waves. And what does he give the New Testament church as ordinances? The Lord's Supper and baptism. A meal and the water. This is God's sovereign provision of grace. That suddenly these timid disciples who didn't have an answer to the problem, he blesses the meal and then gives it to them to distribute. And this is how it happens, is that everything that he was given was broken and given to the disciples so that they could go and serve the people. And they did this in fullness. They had all that they could want. And here's the picture that Christ in the incarnation, the bread of life, the one who is sacrificed for us, his body was broken on the cross. He's laid in the tomb, but he raised from the dead on the 3rd day so that we could be his disciples, faithfully taking the truth of the gospel and giving it to everyone who's need, who's in desperation, who's in times of their hunger and their thirst for righteousness. They need to be told the gospel, and the Lord has given it to you so that you could be the one to go out and share it.